Is it even a question of why I enjoy Bible study when I get to read like that? That's hilarious. Hello everyone. Welcome to a new segment that I've decided to call Heretic Bible Study. And I do want to mention, if you like this, please let me know. Please hit the like button so that you're indicating to me that you like this, if you genuinely like it, or let me know in the comments. Let me go ahead and address the first question that is bound to come up. This is called Heretic Bible Study because I am not Christian, just a nerd who loves to study the Bible. So let me give you the cliff notes on how this entire thing started. Ever since I was little, I've always been super interested in religion, faith, spirituality, metaphysics. That's always been my thing. Mythology, I was totally a mythology kid growing up. I loved learning about ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. All of that completely fascinated me. So that was when I was little. I had a pretty mean atheist phase when I was like a really young teenager, like 13, 14. Then I grew out of it. Then I shifted into being more agnostic, where I believed there was more than just the physical material plane. I had an understanding that there was an energetic source of love and goodness. There was something else out there. Now, as I always say, my personal definition of God is the source of loving consciousness. It's not like a bearded man in the clouds. The source, the divine source of loving consciousness. That's the best way that I can describe it. So over time, my relationship and personal practices led me to develop more of a relationship with this source of loving consciousness, which I personally call God. But in 2017, the real wrestling with God began for me. The things that were happening at that time in my life really made me question the goodness of God, the presence of God. I was feeling punished, teased by God. Like I was doing some deep wrestling with that relationship. 2018 in particular was one of the most difficult seasons of life. Like God and I were not on good terms for like a full year. I felt like I could not really tap into that relationship the way that I was able to before. And over the years, my relationship and understanding of God really began to deepen. Just to be clear, my relationship with God was not on a smooth upward trajectory. It was all over the place. There were many peaks and valleys. It was rocky. Okay, I was beefing with God for a long time. And I've got to be honest, this is not the path for everyone. Not everyone chooses this. There were many times when I would go through these seasons of being really angry and frustrated with God and like doing deep work around that and not being able to lean on my own understanding if I tried. And it would only be after I would have my tantrum, I would be angry at God that I don't understand. I would be extremely frustrated. I would drop my faith. I would be having a hard time. And then once the dust settled, then there would be understanding. Then it's like the reason and purpose would be revealed. And over so many years of doing this, my intimacy with God just continued to get deeper and deeper and deeper. So anyway, all of that being said, last year, I decided that I was actually going to take on the Bible for the first time, like reading it cover to cover, Genesis to Revelation, all the way through. And to my surprise, the funniest things came out of this. Number one, I realized I am most definitely not Christian. That was my first realization through reading the Bible. My second realization was this is literally everything that I want in a hobby. It includes like all of my favorite things. It includes etymology and studying words and root words and cultures and ancient civilizations, which are some of my favorite things. Then there's like a mythological, psychological aspect to it, which is also one of my favorite things to study. I get to annotate the text. That's another thing that I love doing. And frankly, this entire book is about manifestation. I know that the Christians will hate me for saying that. The Christians will probably hate a lot of the things that I have to say. That's why this entire thing is called Heretic Bible Study, because I'm well aware that Christians will probably have mixed opinions on me. They'll probably agree with some of the things that I have to say and disagree with a lot of the things that I have to say. But this is like the ultimate manifestation manual. Okay? Anyway, my perspective on all of this is when we're talking about God and manifestation, we are talking about the source of loving consciousness, loving awareness, remaining connected to that, and focusing in the direction of where we want to funnel the creative energy. Anyway, for the sake of time, I don't really want to get into splitting hairs around manifestation and idolatry and all of that stuff. I've already talked about that at great length in 7 Heavenly Virtues. If you haven't already watched that series, you can go check that out. But I just wanted to give you some background before we actually dive into this. And since we're on the topic of God and manifestation and miracles and God's faithfulness and all that good stuff, I wanted to tell you a story about something that happened literally right before I started filming this. So over the past few months, I've been doing some deep emotional work around my relationship with money, like things within me that just needed to be addressed, like they needed to be taken care of. So I have been on my freaking game. I have been doing everything that I needed to do. I've been busting out all the tools. I have been so disciplined. I've been extremely focused and absolutely relentless when it comes to this topic. And in all honesty, I felt like I'm crushing it right now. Like, I am really in a good place with this. And in case any of you are wondering, I consider God to be the source of money. That's where all the resources, all the goodness, the support, anything that you need, in my opinion, it comes from God. That is the true energetic source of all that is. I'm on my A game. I'm feeling a lot better. I feel like I'm in a really good spot. I'm exercising more faith around money. I'm staying connected to my vision, to my purpose, to my desires. Like, I'm locked in, okay? So last week I received an email saying all of my recurring income is gone. So you can imagine my wrath when I have been working on something and like pouring my heart into it. I've been applying myself. I'm doing the things that I know I'm meant to do. I'm guided to do. I'm led to do. I'm taking care of business. I'm doing all the shit that I need to be doing. And to feel like God snatched it out of my hands. And all of those old feelings that I had about God began to resurface. I'm being teased. God is going to take all the good things away from me. God is punishing me without reason. All of that stuff started to come up. So I have my freak out, I'm angry, and I don't care what other people do when it comes to actual intimacy with God. In my opinion, if I'm angry, I'm bringing it. If I'm upset, I'm bringing it. If I feel like I'm being f***ed with by God, I'm bringing it. I'm telling God about it. That's what intimacy is. I cannot stand this whole thing where it's like, you have to be good boys and girls in order to have a relationship with God. God made me a hothead. He can handle the heat as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, it takes me a few hours, but I finally come down from that experience and I get back on the horse. I get back to my focusing and I'm able to relax about it a little bit more. If I need to rebuild, I'll rebuild. If another solution needs to get figured out, sorted out, it'll come. If I need to rebuild everything from zero, then that's exactly what I'll do. It'll be fine. So I was telling everyone inside the group chat, my group chat, which you're welcome to join if you'd like. Link in the description box. So I was telling everyone in the group chat about my process. Like, they knew that I was boo-hooing about all of this and what my plan was and what my strategy was and what I was doing. And I gave them the full play-by-play of what was going on. A few days pass, I'm waiting for a response, I'm praying over the situation, I'm asking my friends for prayers, all that good stuff. And this is the other thing that I want to mention about this. I just want to make it clear, when I was at my most upset, I was absolutely questioning the goodness and faithfulness of God. That absolutely came into question. I was like, I've been doing everything that I should be doing. Why would you do this to me? Why would you rob me like that? Why would you burn me like that? That's senseless. It's like you're senselessly punishing me. Why would you do this? Wrestling with God and having intimacy with God is not always like, oh God, thank you so much for blessing me. You're so good to me. It's not always this like sunshine and worship and appreciation and gratitude. Don't get me wrong, I love when my relationship with God feels like I'm floating on a cloud, like everything is sparkling brighter than ever. I'm feeling blissed out on life. I'm so appreciative to be alive. But sometimes if life is chapping your ass, you're not going to be feeling blissed out. I mean, if you're able to do that, if you're a Zen master and you have that capacity, good for you. I don't. I just wanted to mention, for anyone who's wondering, this whole thing, walking by faith, not by sight, being able to experience something difficult and then continually return to a space of faith and trusting that if it's not good, then God's not finished, that requires an extreme amount of emotional and mental discipline that people underestimate. This is a path of discipline, just so we're all on the same page about that. Anyway, back to the story. I wanted to share with all of you that I got my freaking miracle today, right before I started recording this. Everything is back to normal. And I just had to let you know about the miracle that I received today. Oh my God, that was terrifying. Let me answer a few questions that I know people are going to be wondering about this. This is an ESV journaling Bible. I love it. I love the ESV translation. Let's talk about Bible reading plans for a moment. So last year when I read this for the first time, I did not follow any reading plan. I just found that I had this natural insatiability when it comes to Bible study. Like, there were certain days that I could put in like 5-6 hours of study a day. That's ridiculous. I don't even recommend that people do that. That's absurd. So the way that I read it last year was really chunky. Like, I would spend many hours studying, reading, and then I would take a couple months off. Then I would go back and study for hours a day, and then I wouldn't for like a month or two. I know a lot of people talk about like 15 minutes a day, like 10 or 15 minutes a day you can get through the Bible. I find that I actually prefer reading and studying for longer stretches. So how I like to break it up is actually by week. And that way I don't have to study every day, but I have a certain goal that I'm trying to hit per week. And I feel like that way it gives me the option of, if I want to read a little bit a day, I can, or if I just want to study on a few days per week and just do larger chunks of study time, then I'm able to do it that way. So for this week, I read Genesis 1 through 15 and Psalms 1 through 5. So how we're going to do this, I've decided to just pull out the scriptures that really resonated with me. I'm going to riff on those, we'll chat, and then we'll wrap up. In the beginning. No, I'm just kidding. Now, I'm assuming that we all have some familiarity with Genesis here. You know, God made heaven and earth, and then on the seventh day he rested. Then he made the Garden of Eden, and he put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in order to take care of it. And so God plops them in the garden, and he's like, hey, listen, you're welcome to eat basically whatever you want in here. One thing that you're not allowed to eat, though, just don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's it. Everything else, fair game. Take whatever you want. It's all yours. Enjoy. And we all know the serpent approached Eve and was like, did God actually say that? And so then Eve explains the rules as God relayed to her. If we touch that tree or if we eat that fruit, we're going to die. So it's going to be a no, buddy. And so then the serpent replies, you're not going to die. You're just going to know about good and evil. Okay? if you eat the fruit, you're going to be more like God. The reason why this stood out to me so intensely was because all it took was a seed of doubt. The serpent didn't come with threats or anger or anything flashy. It was just doubt. A hint of skepticism was all it took. So when I talk about having a relationship with God, what I'm talking about is having a relationship with all that is good, with the source of goodness, the source of well-being, the source of replenishment, the source of resources, the source of all that is good. And all it takes to separate you from that, from your connection to all that is good, is doubt. Because understand that doubt is opposition. If you are opposing God, you're cutting yourself off from the source. If God tells you something, if God puts something on your heart, if God has made you aware of a desire or a mission or a purpose. So let's look at it this way. Whatever desire has been placed on your heart, you may have heard the expression, God will give you the desires of your heart. That can be literal materialization of your desires. That's one interpretation. Or it can also be interpreted as God will reveal to you what it is that you want. And the way to unlock your desires is you have to be in agreement with God. You have to be in agreement with the perspective of God. That's how you get all the goods. You need to stay connected to that. You need to be a yes to that. You need to focus on that. That's what faith is you're trusting what God has placed on your heart. You're trusting the call of your soul, if you will. And when we're talking about getting what you want in life, manifestation, getting your shit, when we're talking about all of that, the only thing that is required of you is to remain in agreement with God and do not oppose it. That's it. This is your one and only battle. This is your one job. Understand that the serpent didn't even scare Eve. What I think we don't appreciate enough is the fact that we're in Eve's position every day. Every day that you are contemplating what you want in life, you have one of two choices. You either agree with God or you agree with the serpent. You're in agreement with the goodness of God or you agree with the doubt. It doesn't need to be fear or frustration or despair or anything like that. No. This is subtle. You are either in agreement with God or you're in agreement with, what if it doesn't work out? Probably not. What if you can't? What if you can't? It's more realistic anyway. That's how it's always been. That's how it's always going to be. There's not going to be any real change. Let's be honest. You failed before. You're probably going to fail again. That's what we're talking about. That's the choice that you're actually making every single day. God gave all of the information that was needed, right? And I think that God does that for us at every stage of life. In any position, in any stage, God has already given us the information that is needed for that point in time. Our only freaking job is to stay in agreement with God and not get into agreement with the doubt. That's it. And that includes when you're dealing with 3D circumstances in your reality. You're dealing with a situation, you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you don't know how it's going to work out, blah blah blah, there's a lot of uncertainty. You still have to be in agreement with God despite all of that. It just means when you're presented with things in the 3D, there's going to be even more flare-ups of that temptation. And in my experience, the emotions themselves don't matter as much as where you land, like where your decision lands. If you land in pessimism, negative expectation, thinking the worst things imaginable, that is a choice. You've chosen to get into agreement with the serpent in that situation. So in my case, even though there was a situation that was very upsetting, very distressing, all of those things, the fact that I'm still talking to God, orienting towards God, wrestling with God, asking God for clarity, asking God for solutions. Why is this happening? Why would you do this? Why? That is me leaning deeper into intimacy with God rather than just settling for a negative expectation or landing in the negative thought form. So when you're upset or angry with God, that's you attempting to seek the perspective of God. A lot of my clients will know this. This is why I'm a huge advocate for have an authentic relationship with God. The more intimacy you have with God, the more willing you are to go there, even when you're at your most vulnerable. So when you are angry, upset, in despair, afraid, any of that stuff, I like to view it as your energetic immune system has been compromised, meaning you're going to be more likely to give in to temptation. You're going to be more likely to just get sucked into that negative momentum that exists over there. In my opinion and in my experience, it is better to be angry with God and talking with God and communicating with God than abandoning God and agreeing with the serpent. In modern times, I think that the serpent most often hides under the disguise of being realistic. So the most sinister way that doubt is introduced and separation from God is introduced is through the idea of being realistic. God is not realistic. There is nothing about God that is realistic. David beating Goliath? Okay. Not realistic. Seeing a huge void and deciding to put earth there. Not realistic. Even if you think this is nothing but mythology and metaphors, God isn't realistic. Okay? So being in agreement with God is not realistic. That's the point. That's what makes walking by faith so difficult. It is not realistic. It is like every bone in your body is going to tempt you to get in agreement with the serpent instead of God. This is literally the human struggle that we all face every day. You are in Eve's position every freaking day. We're on page 3 of the Bible, just so you know. Do you understand why I like reading this so much? It's fascinating. Love it. Really gets my mind going. Okay, I've already been filming for a long time, but I have 2 more things for you. So now I'm in Genesis 11, and this is right after they've built the Tower of Babel. Okay, now this is God talking. Behold, they're one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. So let's assume that the Old Testament is strictly mythology, that none of it's real, none of it happened. Really think about this. What would make them write that? Because if you've studied other mythologies and ancient civilizations, then you know that mythology comes from giving an explanation for something that is self-evident, right? Even if the story is completely fabricated, it's providing an explanation. It's providing a reason for why something is the way that it is. And that leads me to believe they're aware of some type of divine power. They're aware of it, they can feel it or utilize it in some capacity. And this is the story that is explaining how that came to be. Like there could be a myth about why the sun god decided to rise in the east. You know what I mean? Even though the story itself is a myth, it's providing an explanation for something that people are looking at every single day. The reason why this stood out to me is because I'm like, man, right out of the gate, it's nothing is impossible for you. How is that not cool? How is that not badass? Oh, and then, for whatever reason, when I was consolidating my notes for today, I decided to ask AI to expand on this phrase. Put your listening ears on because this is good. Okay, listen. This phrase, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them, suggests that the individuals in question, humans, have reached a point where they have the power, ability, or resources to accomplish anything that they set out to do. It implies a transformation or empowerment that removes all obstacles or limitations. Essentially, it means that whatever they choose to pursue will now be achievable because of a newfound capability or unity. Anyway, I hope you liked that because I always love getting reminders that I really can have, be, and do anything that I want. Love that. Love that God came right out of the gate and was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, you can. You can have whatever you want. You have dominion over everything. Get into it. I have one more thing for you before we wrap up. And I discovered one of my new favorite phrases. Shout out to Psalm 3. But let's read it together, shall we? Ready? It's not very long. Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul that there is no salvation for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. It's like cancel culture, isn't it? Isn't that kind of the vibe of this? Arise, O Lord. Save me, O my God. For you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Honestly, since this is Heretic Bible study, I've got to tell you another one of my controversial takes. I know a lot of people would want to rake me over the coals about this. I don't really like the New Testament. The first 3 books are fine. I'm more of an Old Testament kind of gal. You know what I mean? Because we get banger lines like, break the teeth of the wicked. Are you kidding? That is so hardcore. Is it even a question of why I enjoy Bible study when I get to read shit like that? That's hilarious. If you liked this segment, please let me know. Let me know so that I know that you want me to make more. And also, if you want to check out all of the goodies that I have, the group chat, my newsletter, any classes or fun stuff that I have going on, make sure that you check out everything in the description box below. If you want to hang out with me, I would love to have you subscribe, like, share, comment, all the good stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye!